timely, insightful, discussion and analysis of economic trends and markets. From Southern California to Sacramento, featuring business and political leaders, unique field reports. From Orange County and the campus of Chapman University, this is the Chapman Business Report.
And welcome to the Chapman Business Report. It's our weekly look at business, the financial markets, and a special focus on the regional economies of Southern California. I'm Pete Weitzner. I head up the broadcast journalism program over at Dodge College, a couple blocks west of us as we record the show here on main campus. And just behind us is Beckman Hall, and that's the building that for more than 30 years has housed Dr. Esmael Adibi to my left. He heads up the Anderson Center for Economic Research, and he and Jim Doty, of course, put out their very widely watched and influential annual economic forecast. Just completed their 34th annual, and I'm already working on the revision, I suppose, which comes out.
No revision.
No, you got it right. You nailed it. Actually,
so far,
it looks
so
like
good.
So far you did nail it.
So far, so
GDP.
good. Yes.
Just behind us, by the way, that spinning thing, that's the Global Citizens Plaza, dedicated a couple of years ago by four-star General Colin Powell. Well, later on, we'll duck in one of our fine student feature stories. We all know about rising gas prices. It affects all of us in so many ways, including farmers. Increasingly here in Southern California, we have these farmers markets. Very tough for them to come down hundreds of miles and sell their produce in an environment where it's really tough to raise prices. So Jacob Taylor and Casey Acaster will have a look at that. But boss, let's start with the big number. Over the last 4 years, I would say, since the recession, the onset of the recession, and at one point we were double-digit unemployment in the nation, higher still in California.
Yes.
So every month these new numbers come out, and we've been on the improve now almost by 2 full percentage points. We got the February number as we record this show from the Labor Department. It held steady, but as you always tell me, the bigger thing is how many jobs do we create? So 8.3%, but another 227,000 jobs. That's a good number.
That is a very good number. First, let's look at the unemployment number. It's at 8.3. It went down quite a bit, almost full percentage point
in
over
the last 4 or 5 months.
Exactly, and now it's steady at 8.3%. And something that we have to warn everybody: you can't really look at the unemployment number month to month because people enter the job market, leave the job market.
125,000 a month.
Exactly. So you
job
need.
seekers.
So it would not even be surprising if you see 8.3 become 8.4 or 8.5 as we go through the summer.
Got to do better than 125.
Exactly. But the good news, as we always said, is job creation. And the report we got for February was 227,000 net. Private sector did better. Government made a subtraction there.
Right, which has been the trend.
But even that subtraction is getting smaller.
And even within the private sector, the service sector, of course, leading the way, but manufacturing,
construction.
Small business contributed most, but larger companies were hiring, or at least net hiring.
What's important is the trend. This would mark 3 consecutive
of over 200,000
months that we got over 200,000. Now, again, I don't want to paint a rosy picture here. I mean, we used to generate 300,000-400,000 jobs when the economy was really strong. But nonetheless, getting over 200,000 job creation is a good news. The question is this going to continue? And unfortunately, I'm a little worried that this pace is not going to continue. First, why the numbers are so good, in month of February, partly is because of the weather. Look we're sitting here.
But we expect this. They had a warm winter so far
very
on the
warm
Midwest
winter,
and the East Coast.
And that,
very little snow.
That contributed to less layoffs. See, typically in January, February, you get layoffs from retail sector, you get layoff from construction. I mean, you can't build homes or any building when the snow is coming down. And then even in car dealerships, you let people go when it's rainy and it's snowy.
Look at the car numbers. I bet every salesman is glad they stayed in.
Exactly.
Because these are some of the best numbers we've seen in 5 years.
Exactly. So the point that I'm trying to make, yes, we got 3 good months, over 200,000, but I would not be surprised to see a little bit of a weak job creation. It's still positive, but we may go under 200,000. So for the year as a whole, we're thinking of generating about 2.2 million jobs for the U.S.
Could be better than 2011.
Better than the last 3 years.
Million,
yeah.
And getting us within hailing distance, say 2 to 3 million of the 8 to 9 that we lost since 2008.
See, we lost 8.6 million. If these numbers, as I gave it to you, is going to come through, we're going to still be short about 3.5 million
So
jobs.
If this pace on the economy, we'll look at the GDP figures, which again was the best in 18 months on that first revision, 3%.
Yes.
If we continue with this trend on the economy, which then from that you get jobs, be about 2.5, 3 years, we'd be back to where we were, right? Be about 2015.
Yeah, probably 2015. We're going to get all the jobs
housing.
back. Exactly. And housing is going to be about that time. Housing is doing, showing some recovery. Yeah.
On new homes.
Public builders,
Right.
those who have access to capital, either through issuing stocks or bonds, they're building. They have cheap lands.
Irvine here.
Yeah, cheap lands, and they're building it, and they're making money. But private builders are in trouble.
But you know what we do, especially what you do in the dismal science there.
It's not dismal.
We've never decided, is it? I'm a former CPA. Is it the accountants that are the dismal scientists or the economists? Look, there is some. You mentioned you don't think the trend might continue. We've talked very often about that figure of that takes into account those who want full-time work and those who have given up.
Exactly.
So what they call not full unemployment, but it's a U6. What they call that.
Exactly.
Is 15 to 16%, the long-term unemployed, persistent problem, and a very interesting study. Now, I think we all knew anecdotally that wages were holding steady, if not going down, especially for folks entering the job market or having to re-enter it. And here comes this study. This is a left-of-center think tank called the Economic Policy Institute, just so you know where this came from, looking back over 10 years.
They're liberal.
Oh. I'm surprised to hear you say that, but I'm proud of you.
No, when you said leftist,
I didn't say leftist. That's pejorative. But let's take their numbers for what Wall Street Journal is a front-page story, right? Average wage for young people,
has gone
23
down.
to college grads, $24.35 an hour, 2001. 10 years later, adjusted for inflation, $21.68, almost $3 an hour less, 11%. Boss, that's a pretty big decrease.
But are you surprised?
I guess to see it this stark. No, I'm not surprised. We've been hearing it. To see it this stark.
Yeah.
In this country, with our high standard of living, right?
Yes.
Weren't you surprised?
See, what's happening? No, it's not surprising. See, because you're taking the numbers now, which is we've been in a very deep recession. We had lots of people unemployed. So you think I looked at 2007?
But
it would be a different numbers. See, whenever you hit the recession and unemployment increases, what do you think is going to happen when there's a job opening? If they used to get 10, 20 applications, now they get 100 applications.
Getting 7 on average, now they're getting 4 for every job.
So what's going to happen is basically you hire the most qualified person out of the college, and you try to give them as low of a wages or salary as possible that the market calls for. So it is not surprising. The timing makes a big difference, as when you compare the wages. Now, if the economy goes really full speed, let's say we generate 300,000 jobs per month, we go back to unemployment rate of, let's say, 5-6%, wages are going to start increasing. Actually, one of the concerns we have is the problem with inflation. Right now everybody says, oh, there is no inflation. The reason there's no inflation because there's no wage pressure.
Right.
Once that wage pressure shows up,
certainly one component of inflation is there, and that's gas prices.
Gas prices and food prices and
transportation.
And even services sector. We're paying more for the services, not for the goods. If you get wage inflation, then that's full-fledged inflation. And that's why, economists actually are worried. Yes, right now we're not getting top-line inflation rate of 3, 4, 5 percentage point, but with the Fed printing that much money, which is sitting out there, and if the labor market starts becoming a little tight, you're going to get really overall inflation, which is going to be scary. So it is not surprising, and in spite of the fact that it's a bad news, obviously you don't want to lose real earning power.
And this won't surprise folks either. For older workers, wages are flat to a little higher, and a lot of folks know if you're and I know a lot of folks would say, for one, it's incumbent upon a lot of folks to think of themselves as business owners. This is referring to people who are employees.
Exactly.
But for older workers, wages are flat to slightly higher, and a lot of folks know a lot of people going a couple of years without raises.
Not just raises, we went through furlough. You remember a whole bunch of people who went through furlough, whether they were government employees, private sector, in some cases, across the board. They cut the wages and salaries. Some firms, they did a little higher percent on the top, but more or less you lost your nominal income. And when you subtract inflation from it, obviously real wages are not increasing. But I'm not surprised with that. And the only way that improves again is when job market gets much more stronger, unemployment rate goes down to typical about 5 percentage point, then you're going to see wage pressure showing up.
Right, and just wrapping it up on the economy, you would expect come election time, say, just to give it a time period.
Yeah.
We're at 3% now. We have one more revision on fourth quarter 2011, but you would expect second quarter, third quarter growth about 2.5%.
Exactly. For the whole year, we think about 2.3% on average, and part of the reason again is consumers.
Look at China slowing down, 7.5%.
That's a bad news. I mean, it's true that people say, oh, China is growing too fast, but we sell lots of stuff to them.
Yeah.
So if they slow down, and you know why they're slowing down, by the way.
India down to 6%.
They're exposed to Europe. Europe is in recession, and
almost
so Chinese.
Every country in the red.
Exactly. Chinese cannot sell that much to Europeans, so their economy slows down. Then in turn, they would buy less from us, which is not a good news for us, obviously.
People do feel better.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not euphoric. They do feel better. The conference board measures consumer sentiment. 90 is really good.
Yeah.
It's up to 70. It was in the 30s.
Yeah.
And the way they evidence that, they're buying stuff still in February. So post the holiday season, retail sales, according to the Shopping Center Council, up 7%. Across the board, I've got Target and Gap, but I think Macy's has good sales too.
Weather has to do quite a bit with it. No,
we
of
have
course.
the money, and the credit.
But consumers feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
My worry is next.
There's a great store up here called Moonlight Graham for all you baseball fans. The retro store. I emptied the wallet the other day.
Just wait next month. If gas prices stay at the level it is, or if it goes higher, you know, consumer confidence and sentiment really gets darkened. And then it's going to impact the spending. So consumers are looking, what are they looking at now? A typical consumer, they look at the stock market, which relatively did very well.
It could change in a couple of weeks, but
January, February.
S&P at 1360, NASDAQ at 13, Japan, the Nikkei at 10,000.
And Dow is close to 13,000. So stock market is doing good. That helps the mood. And home prices are not going down anymore. That helps the mood.
And they think maybe they're going to get a principal reduction, which we'll talk about.
And some of them not.
But they also look at gas prices.
Definitely. There is no question.
4 years ago, or even last year when they spiked, but 4 years ago when they hit the all-time high, that really, I mean, we had the financial problems, no doubt. We had the biggest banks in the world on the brink of failure, and some did fail, but when those gas prices, that's when everyone clenched up.
You know, it's funny, actually, I was analyzing gas trend prices. Now, in California at least, it's over 4.
Next to Hawaii, I think, is a little higher.
It's over 4, and the historical high for us for $4.60 a gallon. We're about there, $4.35, right. $4.35. People are absorbing this much better. It's psychologically.
More fuel-efficient cars.
And because we were here before, people are not feeling as bad. But if it creeps
up, carpooling or anything like that.
If it creeps up to $5, then it's a really bad news. And plus, you remember that the Congress and the President extended the payroll tax reduction, so all of us were paying 2% less on our paycheck.
For a 50,000 earning, 100,000 earning.
If you have 100,000, 2% saving
certainly covers
there.
That increase.
But it seems like if gas prices stay where they are, they're all going. It's all going to go to the gas rather than coming to retailers and restaurants.
And cut, by the way, in the payroll
we've
tax.
done enough there now. I think we should wait and see.
Now, boss, you know there's plenty of skeptics out there on rising gas prices. We all know about the tensions in the Straits of Hormuz and Iran. But that's not the sole reason, right? It has to do with refineries. It has to do with increased demand. We're not, I would say, we're still not producing enough. We could produce more. Where do you lay the blame?
The problem, I don't think, is crude production. See, the problem is refinery capacity and type of gas. See,
so we can't build, we need to build refineries.
Yeah, for example, we have refineries back east, and these refineries are built to process only Brent crude oil. What is Brent is sweet. And you cannot overnight, I mean, Brent's, right now, the price of a Brent, a barrel, is 122. And regular, West Texas is about 105. Now, they have to pay $122 a barrel to get that oil to process it to gasoline, basically supplying for the east coast of the U.S. Now, they cannot overnight convert this to process West Texas oil, which is sour. And that basically means refineries' margins are shrinking because they're paying that high price. And if their margin is shrinking, they're not going to build or expand any more refineries. That's what the problem is. So once we got a refinery in the state of Washington that there was fire there, And as soon as they shut down, gas prices here over a week went up 30, 40 cents. See, that is more of a problem than the price of oil.
How about
so we have to look at both of
gas
them.
from Canada from that pipeline?
That's not going to do any good for us. I don't think it's going to. Again, it's not the problem of crude. It's the problem of refinery capacity. And look at California. We haven't built any refinery for the last 20 years.
Sure, and of course the gasoline is higher here because of higher taxes and the environmental
and
standards.
transportation. If you have to transport that, why Hawaii is so expensive? I mean, everything has to be transported.
Move
there.
to Wyoming, 321.
Yeah, that's the cheapest area
in the country.
And close to a refinery.
It hasn't stopped people from buying cars. We haven't seen these kinds of numbers since the glory days.
That's
since
incredible.
Early 2008.
Yeah.
15.1 million. Every automaker, GM, of course, since the government still owns a piece of it, right?
Yes.
Only up 1%. But I think they were comparing against pretty strong numbers.
Exactly.
They've had problems with their electric car. We know that.
Yeah.
But Ford, Chrysler, Toyota's back doing well. Hyundai, headquartered here in Orange County.
Yeah.
Why are people buying so many cars?
See, part of it is mechanical. You know, they haven't bought anything.
Right.
You know, we went from like about 16 million annual sales. We went down as low as under 10 million during the depth of recession.
Absolutely.
And then it means these things are going to break down.
Financing deals still seem pretty sweet.
They're giving manufacturers are giving you practically free money. And there's a pent-up demand. See, if you didn't buy these things
and
2 or 3 years ago.
So if you're worried about gas.
Exactly, you're coming and replacing those cars. And the fact that we have this lease market, you know, after 3 years, you kind of automatically have to roll over, you know, your old car for new car. And remember, these average age of a car on American's road, do you know what that is?
Over 10 years.
10.8. So although the cars are built much better, so they last longer, but it shows that it's an aging, you know, fleet out there, so it has to be replaced. However, having said this again, I always have to say it's not going to hold. This is 15 million, by the way. We annualize everything for the whole year. I think we're going to be close to 14, probably 13.8 to 14.2 rather than 15, because again, the warm weather is bringing people out and they're buying now, so it's borrowing from future.
Speaking of big ticket items, now right now I look at the home sales figures in Southern California and the country, and they're pretty weak. Total numbers. I mean, there's some pockets. You know, here in Orange County, Irvine always sells well. In Southern California, San Diego is selling a little better. And then prices were trending toward the near-term lows.
I think prices are going to stabilize pretty soon, and
foreclosures.
Less units are coming to the marketplace. Banks, as you just mentioned, you know, some of the banks are really going out of their way to persuade people to go through short sale rather than foreclosures, or to reduce their principal.
How about this deal where Bank of America, and not just Bank of America, finally, they're going to cut principal.
Yeah, they're going to cut because they realize, you know, they're going to lose one way or another. So they rather to cut the principal and keep the person who's paying the mortgage rather than foreclosing.
So it'll be full forgiveness.
Not full forgiveness, but bringing the principal down to maybe reasonable level, so the person would see at least the light at the end of the tunnel.
Stay for a while.
They stay for a while and they can't get out. But all of that, what I like about it is done on a voluntary basis. You know, there has been some move on administration part about a year ago that to allow the courts.
They have a $25 billion fine hanging over their heads. Yeah,
but it's still it's a business decision. But going back to the sales and prices. We don't think prices, we said it over and over in this show, and I still say it, the best you can hope for prices on average is to stay flat.
Nationally, we sank 5% last year.
Yeah, but it was...
So that's an improvement.
Exactly. If it stays flat, which we think is going to happen on the median side, then it slowly, as the job market improves, you're going to see higher demand, higher sales activities, lower inventory, and set the stage for improvement in home prices across the board.
You'd be a buyer right now. We know mortgage rates are at all-time low, 60-year low.
If somebody has a long-term
What's that, 15 years? Like 310, something?
315, yeah. 3.15.
If you have a long-term plan, you're
if you have a long-term plan,
you'd buy now. You'd buy in Orange County, you'd buy in LA.
You buy anywhere that you like to live, and you buy something, your dream house, and you don't look at it as investment. That's the biggest mistake people make. When you buy your own home, it's not investment, it's consumption.
Let's finish by talking about California. You still consult to the controller?
Yes.
What do you tell him?
I tell him don't raise taxes if you have a way to do it.
He's not listening.
It's not controller, it's the governor, you know, that is pushing that tax agenda.
And here's one reason I know you tell him. In 2011, another 254 sizable companies left California.
Yes.
An increase of 26% over 2010. And there will be as many as 3 initiatives to raise taxes on the ballot. And all, I think, right now would pass. One is called the Millionaires Tax.
Yes.
And that would raise the top marginal rate, correct me if I'm wrong, to 15%.
As high as 15% on millionaires.
Forever.
Yeah.
On 2 million. You have to make 2 million.
Yeah. Yes.
What would happen if these passed?
They would leave. I mean,
as they have been. High earners have been leaving California.
People vote with their feet.
They go where capital is treated best.
Exactly. If you make it very expensive to live here, it's very easy for them, you know, to practically live here, but declare another state as their residence. Right. You know, there are ways to do that. And what happens? Your tax basis is going to shrink. And remember, that group, you know, people over 1 million are paying a big chunk of our income taxes.
Top 1%.
So if that base shrinks, it's going to be a big problem. Governor's plan, though, it has another big problem, because he's going after sales tax too. It's not just income taxes; it's income taxes and increasing sales tax.
It sunsetted the poor syntax. It's sunset for that, but he wants to go back up 2013 by 0.5%.
0.5% on sales tax. I don't like increasing sales tax.
Regressive.
Very regressive, you know, and plus, this directly impacts consumer spending. Now, people might say, oh, no, it's not a big deal. It's a big deal. If you want to buy a new car, we were talking about new car, and if you have to pay 0.5% more, it makes a big difference. Sure. So what would they do? They won't buy the new car. They would buy a used car, or if they want to buy a new car, which is $60,000, they buy something for $15,000, which means in aggregate, you're not going to collect as much sales tax.
Find a state that has no sales tax.
Yeah, but you can't move the car back here. You have to pay sales tax.
Last word, Wall Street bonuses. Even though it's been a pretty good year in Wall Street, and there's been big deals, Facebook's coming out, bonuses are down. Are you heartened by that?
No.
Do you care?
I'm not heartened.
You want them up. You want them up.
Yeah, but it's a response to the market. Wall Street, they're not making as much money.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the banking sector, no, they're making profit.
But just their bonuses. This is a small violin, 139 down to 121.
That's the average. That's the average.
Yeah.
So what's happening to the Wall Street? You know, they're not making as much money. Even if you look at the bank, sure, they're reporting profit, but the profit is being squeezed. There's not that many deals. The trading might go out. You know, they make lots of money.
Right.
They're doing the trades. So it's response to tough economy. But it's still, what is it? Average of over $100,000.
I'll take 139 last year. It's down to 121.
I'll take it
this year. Boss, we caught some great weather here, just like we've been talking about. Thanks as always. We'll see you next time.
My pleasure.
When we come back, we've talked about rising gas prices, tell you how it's affecting just one small little business and business owners here in Orange County. As we go to break, take a look at an Orange County company earnings. Here's Newport Corp. One time, real high flyer back in the go-go techs of the late 90s. Still doing well. Laser maker. Yeah. And we'll be right back on Chapman Business Report. We're back on the Chapman Business Report. Pete Weitzner joined by the good doctor, Esmael Adibi. Farmers markets have become pretty prevalent in these parts. We got one a couple of blocks away here in Orange. I get my naturally grown honey, locally grown honey there. But gas prices have impacted everyone, including the farmers at these markets, like one in Great Park. Here's a look at that with Jacob Taylor and Casey Acaster.
Orange County gas prices have increased 40 cents over the past 2 months, approaching an all-time high since 2008. With the recent spike in gas prices, not only are families affected, but small business owners as well. We're here at the Great Park Farmers Market to speak with some business owners and see how the gas prices are affecting their business.
Free samples of all the fruit, guys. Come and try.
Well, it definitely hurts probably the farmers more than anyone, because some of the farmers are bringing down their products from Central Valley, and so every journey is pretty gasoline intensive for them.
$13.90 today, guys. We just got to bite the bullet on it. You can't really change. We got to come all the way down here for you guys. This is where our business is. Our farm is further up north.
gas costs more, expenses go up, so profits are take a hit, definitely.
I travel approximately 700 to 800 miles a week. You know, every time the gas prices go up, that's just less money in my pocket at the end of the week for me to support my businesses and to keep things running.
This has been the worst in 15 years. Everybody's hurting, even my clients are hurting because they got a lot of them drive in from Riverside and Corona, and so it's still paying my bills, but you know, it's tough.
Thanks to the boys for that report. Beautifully shot. You ever go to the farmers markets?
I don't, but my wife does. That's her area, you know.
Oh, it is, yeah. Well, good. They need the business now because they know they can't raise hard. No one can raise prices.
It's difficult. It's too much competition. Yeah.
To the boss, Dr. Esmael Adibi, thank you as always.
Pleasure.
Our terrific crew, Jeff Cole Productions, and his gaggle, Ryan Westra, Haley Quattroni, Dan Duran. They do all the shooting, editing, everything. We had a lot of wind to deal with today as well. So, as always, our great thanks to them. They make the Chapman Business Report possible. We'll see you again next week. Another look at business, finance, financial markets, and a focus on the regional economies of Southern California. I'm Pete Weitzner.
Funding for this program was provided by Chapman University.